information on these links that seem superfluous. You know, I mean, like, I don't know, there's all this information about like all the other meetings we had. It's like, why
Okay,
are we
are
talking
live now. Sorry, Nathan.
That's okay.
Hey, welcome to today's session of Collective Sessions, where we're going to discuss possible changes we could present to the school curriculum, including a small discussion on the historic event that's happening as we speak during these times. We're in a pandemic, and right now we have a lot of rioting happening in DC. Approximately 22,000 troops have been deployed in order to manage an upcoming inauguration as well. You know, we have a president-elect in place. We also have a former President Trump. And it's also marking the weekend of Martin Luther King's upcoming birthday as well. So from a historic perspective, we're just going to look at a few of these issues and also discuss what we need to be doing with the school curriculum, and if a school curriculum in any way can assist with what's going on in the world and equipping children to be able to deal with some of the grievances that we are seeing right now, because we're not necessarily sure as parents or people that have gone through the school system. We all know that there are always ways to improve the way things operate. So tonight we have with us the usual co-hosts in the series. We have Ed, we have David and Anna. And I'm just going to start off with talking about nonviolence. Nonviolent resistance and nonviolent action is a practice of achieving goals of social change through symbolic protest, civil disobedience, and other methods of being nonviolent. Even tonight, we could deem the session as being a nonviolent form of discussion in a way to raise awareness and promote a certain thought. We know that Mahatma Gandhi had stopped a national revolt in India in 1922, and he was imprisoned. It led to a movement and arrest of other leaders. Now, he said that his time in jail, he thought about the Karbala that was held in Iraq. He developed certain ideas and thoughts, as well as Nelson Mandela did. So people like Nelson Mandela have also said that, you know, he spent 20 years in prison almost, and then one night he thought of surrendering and signing all the terms and conditions of the government. But then he thought about the Karbala movement and the resistance that Imam Hussein gave, and he was empowered with a right to stand against freedom and liberation. So we've got that there, and then we can elaborate on the 6 principles of nonviolence and Martin Luther King's legacy as well. Nonviolence is a way for a life of courageous people. It seeks friendship with understanding, to defeat injustice, and it holds that suffering can educate and transform. So it chooses love instead of hate and believes the universe is on the side of justice. Now, we can sit and think and ponder for a few moments just about what all of this means, especially now in a time of pandemic. Most of us feel like we're disconnected in some degree from the rest of humanity. But we, at the same time, we're all in a certain situation together. So I'm going to take it over to you, David, if you just want to talk a bit more about what I've elaborated on.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hello, it's been a couple of weeks. Nice to see y'all again. You know, nonviolence versus violence in this, you know, is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think the idea of putting certain parts of the school curriculum targeted at notions of morality, ethics, and nonviolence, and how to treat, like actually teach kids how to treat one another with respect, instead of just teaching them the basic skills of like math, reading, arithmetic, that kind of thing. You know, let kids learn at a young age about ethics, and let kids at a young age learn about tolerance and morality, and and things like that, and maybe nonviolent methods of overcoming obstacles and resistance against you, even if it's from another person. Discussion before destruction kind of thing. But I will say again, a lot of people struggle with that. I've talked to people on my show before about the note, especially like think of last year and all the riots and all the confrontations with cops from Antifa and BLM and everything. I'm not going to go to the Capitol nonsense right now. But I mean, if you know you're on the side of right and you're walking down the streets protesting for the righteous change, and a cop comes up to you and starts beating on you, is it really okay to just sit there and take it because you're nonviolent? I mean, that's the question. What about defending yourself in the face of persecution? As the guys, the planet is decaying more and more because of global climate change, and governments are not doing enough. Some people are saying, something's got to be done. You don't get to do this to our planet, and we just sit back and do nothing about it. Point being is that it's a very interesting and sometimes difficult issue to decide how to approach these things. Talking about Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., yes, they were both people of peace. They learned from Henry David Thoreau, who was very much a person of peace and one of my personal heroes. And let me say, I would absolutely advocate for discussion and peaceful methods over violent methods every single time. But at the same time, you look at the history of revolution and social changes, rarely has it happened without violence. Mahatma Gandhi might not have advocated for violence, but there was plenty of violence during that movement. You just got to dig a little deeper into the history books. Same thing with Martin Luther King Jr. He did not advocate for violence. Martin Luther King Jr. also had Malcolm X and the Black Panthers, who definitely did plenty of violence and against cops and whomever else. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what other people have to say. Like I've decided personally, yes, I want peace. I do not like violence. I've been in plenty of bar fights, back in the day and stuff like that. Being in fights sucks. It's irrational. It's always stupid. Somebody always gets hurt. There's nothing macho or right about it. But I'd really like to hear what everybody else has to say about it, because I think when it comes to government interference and that kind of thing, I don't know. That's it.
All right. We'll take the conversation over to Anna. What do you have to say, Anna, tonight?
Well, in regards to nonviolence and teaching children these techniques, to me, it's a way to teach how to talk to each other, how to communicate, how to gain the experiences and perspectives from the other person. We're not cookie cutters here. Everybody has their own unique experiences and their perspectives, and no two people are alike, nor should they. So to me, nonviolent communication methods definitely should be taught to kids. I have two kids, 7 and 9, 2 boys, and of course, as you may guess, they disagree. So it's interesting to me, like I will let them work it out and talk it out, and they try to negotiate with each other, but eventually they come up to a conclusion. And I try not to interfere because they need to learn how to work with each other, how to communicate nicely with each other. And to me, that's the best thing that I can do as a mom, is to make that, them communicate in words to each other about what, how to move to the next level, how to make that agreement work. So it is very much a way that we can, if we had equal education, we can also reduce a lot of this us versus them society. The way I was raised, we pull our money together as a government, and we pull our resources together and we give it out. And unfortunately, the property tax way that we are doing our school system right now does not leave us to an equitable society, and it does not teach and enforce these equitable values that are so near and dear to our hearts.
Okay. Ed, what do you have to say?
Usually a lot. No.
Okay.
I 100% agree that the school system, the way that they fund it, is wrong. It shouldn't be done on the local level, so that everyone would receive an equal education. When I say equal, I mean equal opportunity. I mean, of course, if somebody doesn't want to learn how to be a doctor, you can't force them. Or if somebody doesn't want to be a paramedic. You can't force them. Go towards what they do like. But as far as kids and, peace and, how our society goes, yeah, we definitely need to have ethics and morality taught. But on top of that, critical thinking, because if people aren't critically thinking, that's how we get so divided like this. The way that society's become so polarized is because we don't critically think about things. Because if we did, a lot of the answers would be easy for everyone. We could eliminate a lot of the garbage if we were critical thinking. But it is all rooted in our school system, and some places have better school systems than others, and do have a lot of things. Like, for example, I wouldn't let a kid out of high school. Not one kid would graduate high school if they didn't take a parenting class. We got to work not only on the national level, but on the family level. The family is more of the foundation of society. So, you want to have peace in society, you got to have peace at home. And you're not going to have that if people don't learn how to be parents. And they're, it's, 100% down the way. I mean, that's what it is. And the other thing I thought was funny, when I was a kid, I took karate. And I'm not thinking, the first thing people think of, oh yeah, to beat people up. No, believe it or not, they teach you a lot of self-discipline. That's what it's about. It's self-defense. But you are deadly when you learn that stuff. So they don't want you to go to jail for killing someone. So they teach you discipline. Like before you could get any belt, you had to take, you had a test you had to take, an intellectual test. And it might be like, why do you avoid getting in confrontations? Why do you not brag about your skills? Stuff like that. Why do you not be a show off? Why should you help the people who are, being bullied? Stuff like that. So that, and not only that, it's physical fitness too. So there's a lot of things in our education system that can teach us peace and even prosperity, while we're learning just easy stuff too that we need to know anyway.
Right. What I've read or somewhere was that a lot of the skills we learn is to be critiquing a lot of things too much, instead of focusing on bringing in a peaceful attitude or a way to see things and give excuses for certain behaviors or understanding. If we consider it, everything is in a form of consciousness. So, and being at a certain state, and a lot of the children, they don't have that heightened level of awareness around them and understanding when it comes to conflict resolution or other social skill deficits that we could look at, including just basics such as social skills in terms of giving positive feedback, negative feedback, how to deal with negative feedback, solving personal problems, being able to negotiate better. A lot of people do feel like school doesn't necessarily equip people for adult life, including even just maybe management of finances and so forth. I know with Push Excel right now, they have a great program where they're teaching money managing skills. And I think that's phenomenal. And they're literally teaching children to look at the stocks and analyze, on a weekly basis, what the trends are and so forth. So whether or not schools do equip children for, even basic skills like farming and going back to being more organic, there's a certain areas that there could be more development and room for improvement. And even when we come to recognizing a certain child's gift, every child has its own talent, and whether or not they're able to fully pursue that in a school-based curriculum is something we can also question. So I'll take it over to you, David, and you can elaborate a bit more about what you feel and see and what the observations have been in your eyes.
Concerning schooling and school curriculums, I think I remember, growing up, obviously, and we had I remember learning how to fill out a checkbook in home ec, and learning to sew and to cook and to like do basic like checking account balancing and that kind of thing. Obviously, different things are done. I don't even know the last time I wrote a check because everything's online. I don't even think I have any updated checks because I haven't used them in years. So everything is different now. Everything's online. So teaching Excel would be a good thing. I'm thinking about like, as far as like the nonviolence things and preparing people for how to live with other people in a civilized and peaceful society. You know, again, going back to like what I said earlier, what Ed said is teaching ethics. And a teaching ethics class, you know, I wouldn't like it. The parenting class is a very good idea. I think it's an excellent idea. Same time, if I had my way over every single high school or maybe even junior high school, is nobody's graduating unless you've taken at least one ethics class until you've learned what morality is, what is right, what is wrong, and how to approach other people concerning it. What your moral obligations are as a participant in a society, and how to treat other people. That's how I envision like some extreme changes. As far as like the farming thing, I think I don't know. I mean, maybe as an elective, like I think I would probably teach organic gardening, so that people, you know, certain things that people can do at their own homes to make themselves independent from like, you know, marketing predators and that kind of thing. Yeah, those are some of the things that, you know, there's plenty of like, there's martial arts classes that are very passive in orientation. Karate, Aikido is very passive. Tai Chi, have you ever seen these Tai Chi guys? These guys are unbelievable. It's all that slow going stuff you see in the parks and everything else. But you ever see the masters of Tai Chi? They're unbelievably devastating fighters when provoked, but they just don't, they're not trained to be offensive. They're trained to be defensive. And if you come at them, you're done. You know, that kind of thing. So like there are different methods you can teach individuals is like how to defend yourself passively and peacefully, but not getting bowled over by, you know, a bully or something like that.
Okay. And what do you say, Anna?
In regards to what should be taught or what shouldn't be taught, one of the things I like the most about the school districts is that they're sovereign. We pay our school districts as an independent taxing body, and they get to make their own decisions based on what, you know, the people, and they can be voted out if the people don't agree. But they are sovereign entities, and that's, to me, with American history, I look at it, we're the United States of America. The states were absolutely supposed to be sovereign, and the federal government is really supposed to help out with foreign, on the foreign side, but domestic side was really tailored to be with the states, and it's supposed to be local school districts. And one of the things that I have learned as being a mom with kids in the public elementary school is there's a lot of Common Core. There's a lot of standardized testing. There's a lot of teachers whose hands are tied by this curriculum that they have to teach as part of their required job. Now, the Common Core is only an incentive. The federal government cannot make us. They can give us money, which they did. I believe it's $65 million for Illinois. However, it costs almost twice as much to implement that system in our school system. And for my kids, I have learned there's this test called IAR, and I think that's the Common Core standard test that they take. And I individually opted them out of that, which I could, as that was my right. So we are not on the standardized test. I do believe that in my school district, most of the teachers, if not all of them, have a college education. We do the continuing education, 35% of their time is for continuing education, to the best of my knowledge. And so I believe the teacher's profession, their professional opinion, it suits quite well for my elementary students that I have in my house and I'm e-learning instructing for. But to me, fourth grade, which I have, can you multiply and can you divide? Can you read? Can you do critical thinking? I don't need all these apps, and especially the apps that are misspelled. So I can go on and on about the school system just because of my experience with them. It's too much, sometimes overwhelming with information. It's kind of like if you have Facebook, text message, Facebook message, text message, emails. It's just, it becomes like, where were we talking about that at? Where were we learning that at? So to me, it has been an overwhelming experience, and I have learned that before COVID with all of these apps. And so I was prepared to, okay, well, if you want my children to learn that app, teach them that app. Don't expect me to go ahead and learn that app to teach them that app. That is not the way. I cannot do that time-wise. So we are sovereign entities as states. In our school board, we pay our taxes for them to make their own decisions. And so when it comes to what they should do and what they shouldn't do, we should also keep in mind of the independent school bodies that sovereignty that the school districts do have. But with that, I mean, I would not make it, I wouldn't have a problem making these basic things, these basic learning things. And I do like that communication class that David, that you mentioned. Like, can you sit through a conversation that you don't agree with? Can you sit there and be civil and play nice in the sandbox on the other side? So I wouldn't mind doing those kind of classes if the states wanted to do that. But as far as what you can do and what you can't do, I would still like to have that sovereignty that we are supposed to have.
Right. And what do you want to add to that, Ed? Is there anything you'd like to say right now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm all for education. I don't care how you look at it, you know, it's whatever way you can get as much as you can from the cradle to the grave. And in saying that, I mean, in every single area, like Dave mentioned, farming, home economics. There's no reason why, if people learned a lot of those skills, they wouldn't have the time or the desire to be doing crazy stuff, to rioting. Now, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't stand up or we wouldn't have a general strike or something if things were wrong. That's understandable. There's no reason not to peaceably protest, but over sensible things, you know, and who determines what sensible things? We all do when we are more educated. Of course, you could be easily led around by your nose if you're not educated, and someone can convince you that acting violent is the best way to solve this one situation or something like that. But that's why we need more education, and it has to be well-rounded, and it has to be for everyone. And though, like Anna said, you know, it's a state thing, it's a constitutional thing to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can't have those three things without education. So there should still be, even though states can exercise their own sovereignty and their own separation, there still should be some minimum standard, just like we've made it so that there was a minimum standard as far as who you can marry, or if all races should be able to have the same rights as the others, you know. So this is just as important. Education is just as important. It falls in that category, like human right. And I even mean that as far as cost-wise too. Like in America, before they had all the school loans, tuition was competitive, and maybe you worked a summer job so that you wouldn't have any school loan debt, or you wouldn't have any debt for school. You'd have everything paid. Oh yeah, work a summer job. Now kids get out and it's 100 to 300. I've seen people $300,000 in school loan debt that have brought me their documents to do their taxes. That's ridiculous. So you're now, even though you have that education, they had a lot of education for 300,000. Even though you have that level of education, you're a slave to a job, because now you have to pay that bill every month, and there's no forgiveness now, because now you've got the education, you should be able to have the job.
Right.
And
I know somebody who did that. Sorry, go ahead.
I feel that any investment made towards a student is always something that the state should be able to bear in some way, shape, or form, because that's just something that will bring back towards the economy long term. So hopefully we get our minds right in the way we consider education as well. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I've always talked about the public bank. That's one of the aspects and proposals that the Green Party has on its platform as well, because I feel that that would reduce a lot of the loan and the burden that a lot of people have as well. If not, I think there is a capacity to revisit the budget and to allocate for educational resources being as a human right. But I'll let you talk, David. You wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just going to follow up on what Ed said about the school loans being a type of indentured servitude at best and slavery at worst. When I lived in Portland, Oregon, I knew a bunch of med students, and a good friend of mine who was a med student eventually during the course of his curriculum told me, he's like, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm like, so then stop, quit the curriculum and go do something else. He's like, I can't. I have over $300,000 debt, a school loan debt I have to pay. I'm like, dude, that sucks. I mean, like, just having to do everything the rest of your life in a way that you really just don't want to because of money and debt. This is why I don't do money. This is why I avoid all of that. I mean, seriously, I'm not even kidding. Like, I caught on to this crap a long time ago. Wage slavery. I don't care if I'm 51 years old and I live with my mother. You can think I'm a loser all you want. I'm a free man. Okay, I don't have to abide by a lot of this nonsense. I mean, I felt so bad for my friend. I mean, he's dealing with it and he's fine and he's a very good doctor and that kind of thing. But man, is that a drag, getting stuck in something for the rest of your life that you don't want to be a part of?
Right. I agree. I mean, people do get themselves caught up in a slave cycle. Even people can consider a 9-to-5 job that isn't in their purpose and mission for life, something as comparable to being a slave in a system. So I think a lot of people are looking at other avenues of income, especially during this pandemic season. But having said that, I do feel like even the pandemic, it's brought across skills that my children have had to learn, including, revising their cooking skills, being more self-reliant, cleaning up after their mess, even though they know that they're not accountable to any teacher and so forth. In addition to being able to focus in a home environment, there's so many distractions and resilience, just ability to cope with change. And these are things that weren't necessarily happening in a school's environment. And I do think that in certain ways it is a blessing in disguise, but I do feel like when it comes to the emotional side or psychological dealings of children, there needs to be more implementation and understanding of how children operate in a certain given space and how they can work better in a certain environment as well. I'm going to give it to Anna right now because I know her children went through a similar situation and she can elaborate more on what happened in her household.
In regards to the e-learning or taking on more chores. Oh, e-learning. Lots of good stuff with e-learning. Blessed we have a structure, but that structure could be better. Always room for improvement, right? I would, if I cannot talk about e-learning for a minute of my life, I like to talk about something that I read a while ago. So these numbers might be rough, but I remember reading back in like the 1970s, tuition was $400. And Ed, you might remember, not just because you might have read the same thing.
Oh, because I might be too old, huh? Okay.
Hey, remember when you first went to college?
Remember those dinosaurs, Ed?
Carefully grace that, right?
I will get you back.
I'm 42, so bring it on. Yeah, but okay. Now that I dated myself, when I went to undergrad last century, books were like $100, $200. And so the cost, and you can probably maybe get 1 or 2 books now for $400. So for the price of what the 1970 student paid for tuition, we may be able to get 1 or 2 books that are required and that these students may or may not read. So also the problem to me is the rate of investment. When you look out on the job market and you see bachelor's required, it's not money signs. I saw one for bachelor's required for $12 as a part-time job.
Good.
That does not, you're not going to get your rate of investment on that. And I know that there is a surge of people going to trade schools, or at least encouraging people to go to trade schools, and bring that back into the limelight. So it's not just go to college, get a good job, and you'll make a lot of money, because that track is obsolete. That is not happening anymore. It wasn't happening in our pre-COVID economy. Hopefully it'll happen afterwards, but as far as our current situation, that is just, it's not going to be true. And I feel bad, because when I was growing up, that's what you could do. You could go to college, you could get a good job, you could make a good living for yourself. And I imagine that's a hard decision for some young people these days too, because of the large amount of money that they would have to pay if they did attend school. I also wanted to mention one more thing, and that's it was from 2017, and it was called the People and Planet First budget for Illinois. It was done by Fair Economy Illinois, and they placed some numbers together, and their information from 2017. So I think some of the information is from 2015, but they had placed it as fully funding pre-K, preschool through 12 education at $5 billion. And then to fully fund the community college and undergrad at $2.5 billion. So that's $7.5 billion that we can go from pre-K through undergrad, that we would be able to provide that to, if that Fair Economy Planet and First budget was instituted for $7.5 billion, we'd be able to have an equitable education system and have it available, and have it so we can maybe attract younger, innovative people here as a benefit. It would be a benefit that our Illinois residents would receive, is free college education. To me, that's huge. That's such a benefit that it would make us very competitive for young people who do want to move, or anybody who wants to move, as long as it's in that criteria. But it's that young, innovative mind that is going to help create some solution, the solutions that we have going forward. Water, air, these are basic transportation. These are things that we need to progress, and hopefully, if we had that $7.5 billion, we can have that free education for our students as a benefit to our Illinois residents. That would be nice.
That would be nice. May I say something real quick?
Mhm.
Going back specifically to school curriculums and that kind of thing, and what kids should learn from K through, say, 12 at this point. And just going over with what Candace started with yesterday and her experience jogging or taking the dog for a walk. That was pretty awful. And the whole notion of, again, teaching kids how to get along with one another through reason and conversation before, going to fisticuffs and that kind of thing, and bullying each other is very important. But even I was thinking, as we're talking tonight, I was thinking more also about like how most school curriculums are designed to, they're not designed to make you a better person. They're designed to make you so you're able to get a job. Okay. And for the most part, at least. And that goes well into college. I mean, why do people go to college? Well, to get a job. I again, didn't do that. I went to college because I wanted to learn how to learn and how to think. So I studied philosophy. Philosophers don't get jobs. Okay, so, but I don't care. And the main major that people get nowadays is a business major. Business major curriculums are extremely vague and really don't pertain to anything specific. You might have to learn how to use Excel a little bit, maybe some managing techniques, some people skills, that kind of thing. But there's no specific, like you're going to be a chemist, you're going to be a biologist, you're going to be a fireman, whatever. It doesn't work that way with business majors. Point is like through K through 12, why aren't we learning more about current issues and current political issues instead of just the historical issues, which again, we were lied about completely. What did you ever learn about the atrocities of slavery when you were going through school? No. Did you ever learn about peonage or Jim Crow laws when you were going through school? I didn't. Did you learn about any of these things? How like Oklahoma City was burned down, or Tulsa, Oklahoma was burned down, or the 1919 racial riots in Chicago? No, I had to find that out on my own. We were taught America is this wonderful land and everything is great and everybody's happy and everything is fair and equal, which is a lot of nonsense. Point is like, not especially nowadays with the urgency of like things like climate change and that kind of thing, and the amount of how agriculture is implicated in that very process of climate change. We should be teaching kids about current issues and how to solve them. So we're not just getting ready for whatever job you may take, sitting in getting a white collar job, sitting in a cubicle somewhere, doing accounting for like a company that makes keychains, but you're actually doing something that helps the planet, it helps everybody, it helps the future of the planet. That's all. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay. I know myself, coming out of school, I looking back, I kind of wish I had more, abilities to be able to cope with transformation and, getting into adulthood and, like you said, parenting and all of that. You sort of come into things not well equipped to be able to deal with them and then just deal with them heads on. But that's part of the journey. It's part of the experience. But having said that, I do look now back at some of the history or even some of the ideology that was taught. And I look back and I consider, was this even the correct perception or reality of a certain situation? I know when it came to history, we were more focused on Roman, Egyptian, and just Australian history. I mean, I grew up in Australia. So that was the main focus, but we never looked into American history in depth as much as we did when it came to European or the monarchy in the UK. So for that reason, I feel like there are certain areas which have been neglected, which now are sort of important to me. And we have to sort of go back and retrace our steps and even revisit history in a different light. Not necessarily everything I was taught was the correct perception or version. And I do sometimes sit now and I reflect and I think, well, I wish I sort of had more time to read or find my own truth in a certain situation. Is that an experience that any of you have had here on this panel tonight?
Well, when you were talking about the things that you were taught in school, I was thinking about like the Trail of Tears, like when they taught us that, when they taught my class that, it was tragic. Yeah, it was horrible, but they never connected it to the real day situation, that we're still trampling their land. We're putting radioactive materials in Yucca Mountain. So they put it in like an isolated bubble, like, oh, we did this and it was bad, but it was in the past, rather than it was in the past and we're still doing it today.
Right.
So I think with those kind of connections, and honestly, for like the critical thinking skills, I don't remember. I don't remember if we were just not. I don't remember, like, that was when I remember that we were taught this item as a historical event in the past. And was I supposed to then critically think about the Native Americans for today? Because I don't think that they ever took that leap, because I don't remember being taught in school about the present day treatment of Native Americans.
Right. I mean, that for me is a big experience as well. I felt like it was just an isolated incident taught off in a bubble, and then we were somehow meant to connect it, or even like when you go back and look at the, say, ancient Egypt, and even some of, we never, right now, I sort of look at some of Nikola Tesla's models of his way in going about, and of just even electricity and his proposal for that. And then how these two are isolated incidents, but somehow, you could have sit there and you could have said, oh, well, maybe they were using similar models, or there was something further that we would have liked to have known, or been given an option of looking into at a certain time, but they never really pushed for that, or they never ever got us thinking about other areas. It was just sort of more, this is how it was, and this is what it is, and this is what it meant. Or even the significance of a Magna Carta in today's time. We just don't even question. Even someone was talking to me today, I think it was Ed, about slavery is written into the Constitution, how we don't sit here now and say, well, this needs to be revisited somehow. We're just accepting it, where we need to look into ways of, as has been indicated tonight, of problem solving or bringing about change. And when we weren't trained to be doing that. We were just given something and told to accept it. And it sort of comes hand in hand with the ideology of what the news presents us as well. How many of us are critically thinking or analyzing that? I mean, as much as some people don't like President Trump, he came out clearly and talked about fake news as a concept. But I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who knew that it could have been possibly spun or fake or sensationalized for certain reasons, but now we've been accepting that not all news is necessarily verified. So can we go into that a bit more today? I see you nodding your head, David, so I'll let you elaborate on that for me.
News, specifically fake news, or what do you want to?
Yeah, well, news and the concept of learning and teaching and being told or spoon-fed information, and taking it as what is the real circumstance or not.
Well, I think that, it probably, like, Anna pointed out earlier, the local school districts have sovereignty, and it's up to them to build the curriculums for their respective areas. And so it starts with them to actually build a curriculum that includes critical thinking skills and encouraging teachers to encourage students to question what they're being told, to learn the process of research, data research, how to verify information, how to falsify information. Those are two extremely essential things when it comes to figuring out what's true and what's not true, is falsification and verification. And those sorts of things should be taught, but you have to start at, like she said, the county board or the district board level to institute the curriculums. That way you would have a generation of people growing up that could see through the nonsense of fake news. And when you hear something outrageous, you would stop and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Let me look further into that. Instead of just accepting what you're hearing, whether it be from your teacher or from the newscaster or your friend or the person next to you at the bar, you actually are embodied with this ability to think in a way that gets you to the truth or the likelihood of the truth or falsity of something.
Okay.
That's all.
Ed, do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. The more we are educated, the less problems we'll have, because people will know the easier ways to solutions.
Right.
And they even said that Slovenia and I believe Germany are countries where Americans can go to college for free. And you can't even do that in your own country. That's bad. But the reason why you can do it over there, and Slovenia actually has colleges that have all English classes to accommodate us. What is this, like a third world country providing welfare to America? We act like we're number one when all these places outdo us. And some say, well, that's because they're smaller countries, they can do that. If you add up the countries that have education, not for Americans, but for their own citizens at least, which is many, their combined population in Europe adds up to more than 400 million. So just count all of our states like different countries over there. And we have only 320. So why is it we can't do it? You're either going to say it's because they're smaller or because they're bigger or whatever. You're going to make up every excuse you can. Like, for example, we can't take care of immigrants before we take care of veterans. Oh, okay, let's go help with veterans. Well, I don't got time for that right now. Yeah, you don't want to help nobody. Well, that's how we act with our education system. We've turned it into big business. And as soon as loans were involved, which is going to be my next thing, as soon as loans got involved, nobody cared about the initial cost going up, because they didn't see the bill. It went to the loan company. And so it just let us off that cliff while we don't see it until the end. And then, oh my gosh, we're stuck with it. As far as, the last point I wanted to get is school loans. I know this should be a subject we talk about, but school loan forgiveness. And I don't mean the government pays the banks for our loans to be forgiven. I mean, the government says they don't have to be paid back and the bank doesn't get it at all. Right. And you might think that's unfair, but if you know the rule of 72, the rule of compounding interest, and how fractional reserve works, that they lend out 9 times more money than they have. They made so much money on these loans, they've already been paid back for them in full. So it wouldn't be even immoral or unethical or even unfair for us to just cancel the debt, or at least put it so that it can be discharged in bankruptcy. So it,
which used to be the case.
And if you, and especially if you say, well, we're number one, we ain't number one if we're not the most educated. Not at all. Not at all. We only are number one in the size of our military and the number of people incarcerated. That's America.
That's true. Those are literally the only 2 areas we are number one. Is absolutely literally correct. Healthcare, we're like 16th. Education, who even knows? So freedoms, economic and social freedoms, we rank like not even in the top 15. I don't even think we rank in the top 20.
But in most of those areas, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in most of those areas, America used to lead in all of them.
Yeah, no, it used to be number one in almost all of them, but now it's just the size and the destructive value of our military, including that's also the number one body of polluting body in the world. And then mass incarceration. It's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry.
Those are great.
Yeah, no, real.
Okay, so we touched on the pursuit of liberty, life, and happiness, and let's talk about the fulfillment of people and students that they have when they get out of school or college or whatever, trade school, whatever path they choose to take, and they're then faced with true happiness. How much do you think the schools are equipping them for that path? Are they necessarily pursuing what is their talent, or they're just going with where they feel the money is and so forth? Do you feel that, in today's time, someone's chosen career path may not be the last destination that somebody has, because we need to keep it moving in a time such as this, or going forward, people may need to take 3 different types of, career paths in order to sustain income even. So let's touch on a few of those issues. Anna, I'm going to present it to you to discuss a bit more.
Well, I like to still bring it back to the student loan. I think that's a big damper on happiness. When you got out of school, let's say, for example, somebody just is graduating this May. This economy is rough. People were laid off a lot in January because of COVID. Either the business wasn't there or that position was not there. So you have these graduating seniors coming into this economy with a baggage of loans. They're probably going to go back to their parents, and they can't start their life. They can't buy a house. They can't explore some of the luxuries that a young single person, I think, would want. And so I do think that if we were to handle student loan debt, I think that would lead, if you have a $300,000 ball and chain on you, I don't know how happy you're gonna be. You do the best that you can, but I think maybe I do think maybe, you know, the happiness could still come. Of course, you know, look at the positive things. But it's really hard to begin life with that kind of debt.
It's super hard. And real quick, I think we are gotta go. Is that
Yeah.
right, Candace?
Yes, we
Yeah.
were
Sorry, I don't
closing
mean to be rude,
in.
but
No, it's
like
okay,
two,
that's
it's a minute
fine.
till 6.
Yeah, we have to, yeah, we're closing in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll let you guys know.
So I'll just let David and Ed quickly just round up a few words and then we'll close out.
Yeah, real quick, there are 1,000 different needed solutions to occur to fix this thing to make society a better place in the future. I think we've all talked on spoken about a lot of them. Starting with changing the
Excuse
school,
me.
bless you, changing the school curriculum is a good way
Bless
to go
you.
about it.
Thank you.
You know, to teach kids at an early age how, again, to treat each other is a massively valuable lesson in education. You know, again, we don't, you know, get past this notion that school is merely about learning how to get a job. That's ridiculous. Again, you can get, sorry, we gotta go. That's my piece.
All right. Okay, Ed, I'll hand it over to you and then I'll make my closing remarks.
Yeah, I'm pro-education. That's the solution to everything.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So basically tonight we discussed that education is a human right. And we do believe as Americans, every child should have equal opportunity to access of education, that we should be approaching it with more measures to include nonviolent resistance, understanding of the environment in which they are living, including interpersonal skills as well as skills to deal with their peers and so forth. And this is part of the equipping of somebody to be in to go into life and evolve in relationships, including marriage and then parental relationships and responsibilities towards children. Part of the dysfunction that we're having is simply because technology has come in as well, and people aren't feeling as connected or able to discuss properly and civilly with each other. And I'm not sure how much that's going to affect children going forward, but that's definitely something we should bear in mind, where we're not speaking with each other, we're speaking in a manner that is to each other and may even be part of what the political climate is right now and feeding into that hostility and tension. We need to know how to de-escalate a tense situation and how to resolve conflict civilly and with love. Well, let's bear in mind that we are having the Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday on Monday, which is upcoming, and the language of love is so important right now. And it's important to have hearts reach out to each other and to be kind and to look at the skills that we have. And even part of that love is extending student debt forgiveness. We should want to have our neighbors be part of something that they want to pursue, which is the right of liberty, life, and happiness, which is what is the American dream. So I'm going to close it off tonight. I thank you all for today's discussion. It definitely got us all thinking, and we wish the best going forward.
All right. Thank you. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.